Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Well, welcome back to the Think Factory podcast, which is hosted and powered by OGC Solutions. I think you may know from some of the earlier episodes that we have a real, affinity with the printing and packaging industries. Some of it's because of the work that we do, but more importantly, it's about all the exciting things that go on with our clients in that market. And what we're here to do today is to talk about the thing that's on everybody's minds in the printing and packaging industry, which is print is not dead. And as far as we're concerned, it's never going to be dead. And that's especially important as we're approaching the October Printing United show in Atlanta, which is the annual trade show where all of the best and the brightest of equipment manufacturers and OEM providers come to show off all the cool technology. But here to talk about it today is my good friend and client back from the days when we worked together at AGFA, which is Jason Hamilton from Innovative Displays. And he's the president and, most appropriately for this conversation, the chief innovation officer at Innovative Displays.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Good to see you again.
That's great. Thank you. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're getting excited about the October show in Atlanta with the Printing United show. Just an aside for me is, I've heard about Printing United for a number of years, but finally got to go to my first show last year. And I was just blown away by, I feel like I know the technology pretty well, not nearly as well as you do, but I was blown away by all of the new and exciting things that impact print and packaging. And I wish folks out there could see some of the technology that goes into the things that we read and touch every single day. It's amazing.
Yeah, people oversimplify what we do and, don't realize all the steps that it takes to, create that book, create that sign and all those things. But I'll tell you, the team at Printing United, Chris and Steve and Denise and all the people, who are involved and many more have really elevated the experience of what a trade show means to North America. For us in the industry, Graph Expo was always one side, and then SGA was another, and then everyone talked about Drupa as being the ultimate experience. But if you go back pre-COVID to the Dallas show and the previous show, it's they've taken it to a next level, and like you said, for people like yourself, that's your first time, you really feel like you're pulled in and you're part of the community. And as much as we all compete against each other, it's an incestuous friend, family type industry. And those of us are in it. And as long as I've been and my family, it's a great experience. So I give them a lot of props for what they've created for the industry, and very much looking forward to October's, because I know it's going to be even better. And like you've experienced with me at the summits, they create a whole different experience, right? So it's been great.
Yeah, it's amazing, and what I'd love to talk about today is, the technology that goes into the products is something that I think is really, cool for people in the industry. But I'd love to just, focus in a little bit on Innovative Displays, but in particular you. And you're a longtime operator, so to speak, in the business. Talk a little bit about what's going on in Innovative Displays, maybe some of your background and how you got there, to give people just a sense for who you are.
Yeah, so I'm kind of one of those young, been around for a long time. It's I just turned 50 this year and realized some of the people who wish me a happy birthday on LinkedIn and other social medias that, I was working with some of them when I was 14, 15 years old. So you start adding all those years up. But, it's, print's in my background. My grandfather in publishing and writing books. And, of course, my father was a longtime industry veteran for over 65 years in North America and quite well known. So it was always fun being Terry Hamilton's son for a long time. And then eventually it was, oh, he's your father. So that's when you kind of have made your mark a little bit. But yeah, listen, it's a family industry, cousins and so forth. My daughter is now in the industry as well too, which brings some pride for me, because she sees what all the hard work has meant and so forth. But I've sat on both sides, as you know, you and I working together at AGFA, which was my first experience working at a manufacturer level, and I've worked in print and supply, and about a year and a half ago, I was presented with an opportunity to join an ownership group of a smaller, mid-sized based company, but sat in what I would call a unique space or a unique platform area. The ownership, the Foleys, offered me the opportunity to come and help expand their vision and their dream, and use some of my experience and my relationships, I'm sure, to help drive that. And our ultimate goal within the group, we have a plant here in Canada and one in the United States right now, is really to right size who we are. So we look at two different silos. Our greatest level of intellectual property for me as a senior manager and someone who's helping to operate the company is our people. And then the technology and the tools that we use to deliver for our customers and the brands that we support. So, the goal has been to align ourselves with the right people, the right suppliers. We're very much a relationship-driven business, which in a lot of cases, most printers are. Some of us still believe the handshake is the greatest form of acceptance and partnership, and I still believe in that. Some might think I'm a little bit foolish, but I'm also 6'3" and not small, so most people don't mess with me too much. But the goal within the company has been to right size it, look for that expansion, which you and I have talked about. We're going through that process right now, some due diligence, and looking really to expand our market reach and provide new and exciting things to our customer base. So joined here a year and a half ago. It's been a fun experience. For someone who's done a lot of different roles in the industry, I've had to learn some new things as well too. I've talked to more lawyers, more real estate, more of this than I have in my lifetime, other than talking to you. Yeah. So it's been fun. And when you have an ownership group that gives you the elasticity to be creative and really to enjoy calculated risk, but being accountable for that calculated risk, right, has been exciting. And I've had some great mentors in my life that have kind of groomed me into this.
Really on both sides of the table, in a sense, right?
Yeah, and I'm really one of those people that I like to listen to what everyone has to say, but the people who've built this industry over the past 30, 40, 50 years, have been an important part of that, because as technology has changed and expanded and grown, how you deal with people hasn't really changed. So from my dad all the way down to the Paul Parrs, the Terry Pitchfords, even the Ruben Silvas and other people that I've been surrounded with and by in my career, it's helped to, I feel, develop to where I am today. And I better throw my mom in there too, because if I don't give her respect, then I'll get in trouble. But
you're gonna hear about it.
Yeah, but even some of my former customers, spending an hour on the phone with a David Day from Color Dynamics, or Elaine Scrima from GSP, or Todd Kober up here, Kober Solutions, and others. Just whether they're in the same age demographic or older than myself, I think as we look at technology and people and the way that we're all trying to expand our business, that's where the community comes together. And listen, this is all I've been doing, collecting a paycheck since I was 14. So the community means everything to me. That's why I enjoy going to Printing United. That's why I sit on the board of the Digital Imaging Association here in Canada for the, past almost 20 years, I guess. So yeah, it's been important to me. The industry means everything to me, to be honest.
Well, I was really impressed by the amount of sharing that goes on. It's like everybody leaves, in a sense, they leave their company affiliation in terms of the competitive side of it at the door, and people want to just hear what you're up to, how are you doing certain things.
Yeah.
And like you in particular, I've just been impressed with the innovation that you guys aren't afraid of a project that's complex.
No.
I mean, some of the things you're printing on and printing for, I mean, those are not easy jobs by any means.
No, and again, transparency helps as well too, right? And being honest with you can or you can't, right? So, like we just had a customer in here just before this podcast, and they're like, I want to print on this material. So you travel through the process and explain the benefits and the hurdles and the speed bumps, and and we like that type of work. It's I don't print on Coroplast real estate signs every day like some others do, but I'll have 50 to 150 sheets of acrylic that I'll run and cut and bind and do whatever we have to do. So that's the nice thing of this industry. It's each day is different, right? It's there's always challenges, and to your point, the involvement of the community where we share more. Now, I'm telling you, 30 years ago, if you were working in a plant, they go, do you have friends that work down the street at the other printer? Because you can't tell them what we're using. Now it becomes how are you using it compared to how I'm using it, and how can you help me? And job sharing has become a much more common thing today. Like we use within our, we use an old term, a hubcast term of sharing work, and I have printers across North America that, based on relationship and trust, they quote my work, print my work for me. And you didn't do that, not so long ago. But to your point, I think the community is tightened up. I like the fact that I could text another printer and say, listen, I'm having this issue. Do you have some suggestions for me? And they can go, oh, I printed the same job a month ago. Sure, no problem. I can tell. And that, to me, that camaraderie and that family aspect. And I really think organizations like Print United and others in the past and have really brought that together, and the summits.
For sure. I want to go back to how we started the podcast, Jason. By the way, this is just fun talking to people that I've known for a long time. So it's like we're just hanging out having coffee, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we started out saying what a lot of people at the shows say about the fact that print is not dead.
Right.
With that concept in mind, what are you seeing in the market today that suggests, that in fact print is going to be here to stay in so many different ways in terms of what we touch and use every single day?
Yeah. So, volumes have changed. I think that's natural, right? Consolidation, compression of market and everything. But when I say that is, people are asking us to do things that, stretch the envelope even greater. So the volume might have changed, but their price point in some cases have increased. We're doing a project for a customer right now, which is an award, and it's it's an acrylic piece. It's holding this hammer type object. It almost looks like Thor's hammer in it, and it's a one-off, but they're willing to pay a very bountiful price to have a one-off unique piece that uses multiple substrates, multiple things to do, and for me, you're seeing that more and more, right? So, or we do a display for a beverage company, and maybe they don't need 10,000 of them, but they're going to buy 4,000 of them, and they're going to have a unique characteristic. It might have a 3D option to it. It might have, near field communications on it, a whole bunch of different things. So, I think the ideas are expanding what print is today. And I think it's going to continue to grow. And the more balance where you see social content, print content, publishing content, all merging together, I think it's it's a great thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah, certainly when you're talking about three-dimensional objects and all these things that sort of take a vision and bring it to life, that you see so much more than you did even 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
But even the more traditional print like books, direct mail and things of that nature that you take for granted sometimes, but there's a lot of hot segments in there, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And not everyone's going to play in every space, right? There's always going to be, you got to decide what best fits your lane. Like I will never have a web press in my arsenal. That's not my thing. That's somebody else to do. But yeah, the interactive part of print, I like what others are doing, like Warren and others talking about impact in print and all those things. So it's an exciting time. It really is. And again, pay attention to how many people go into a Barnes and Noble these days compared to what we were told it was going to be, and the tangible experience that a book gives to people now. People judge a book by the cover, how the cover is printed, the type of paper they use. Is it got embossing on it? Does it have foil? Does it have all these things? It's very unique, and I'm glad we're still continuing to go that way. And packaging just takes it everywhere. Packaging's just the explosive area where ideas mean everything, right? It's just, and that you can push the envelope in so many ways. You start stacking things, you start using multiple substrates into a single project piece. It's a fun area of our business.
That's a place that, if you're in the industry, packaging is hot, because of the things that you're talking about. One thing I always find interesting about it is putting aside all of the functional characteristics, like food packaging, for example, has to be special, right?
Yeah.
But everything that goes into the packaging, but it's the part of the product that you tend to throw out or discard.
Right.
But in effect, it's actually one of the most important pieces in terms of attracting a buyer. So, you see that dichotomy, super important because it creates an image or an impression, but at the same time, you may not use it beyond the time that you open the product.
Yeah, there's definitely two levels to it. I always kind of use, when you buy an Apple product, the first thing you wow yourself about is the box and how it's packaged and how condensed and the little pieces. And, how many of us still have iPhone boxes and iPad boxes because it's a uniqueness. But to your point, there's still that throwaway. So we do a lot of subscription-based packaging. So it's short run, but it's to a specific product line. But that package that delivers just one item, it has first and secondary uses, and then gets thrown away, right? But if you were buying that shavingkit.com and if it came in a plastic bag, you go, the experience wasn't that great. But if it came in a nice corrugated box with a unique die line and a unique way that the razor was sitting there that popped out, you go, that's cool. Most people take a picture of it and then throw the box away. So, there's just so many places to go with it. And, the manufacturers have done a good job in terms of, educating printers on how to use technology to expand that experience. And, and we need them to continue in their development path to, broaden the think process of what brands are trying to do. And, my ultimate thing is I want a brand to come to me and say, I need to do this. Show me how to do it. Fix and solve my problem. Make my idea a reality. So, and to do that, there's a whole lot of Lego pieces to make that work. So, from the consumable item to the technology and the technology partner that you need to make that work for you. The people, all those things, right? It's I tell people in every presentation, I live in a Lego world. I got to be able to move my pieces whenever I can to adjust to the requirement or the needs that are around me. So, yeah.
You don't have a side deal with Lego, do you?
No,
you're doing a pretty good job with product placement there.
You know me, I'm a shoe guy and a Lego guy, so it's but it's fun, right? And
it is, because that's really that's a great analogy though, because you're actually taking a concept that's one or two dimensional, maybe just in someone's brain, and you're bringing it to a three-dimensional world. Right?
Yeah. Like we're working with a cosmetic company right now who ships a cream in a very plain little sleeve box, and they're like, okay, well, we charge $200 a bottle for the cream. And I said, yeah, but your shipping box makes it look like it's worth $15. So do you want people to spend the $200? And your box has to look like it doesn't have to cost $200, but it's got to look like it costs more than the cream. So getting those things into play, and it's fun. Like you get your designers in a room, and you just basically say, show me whatever you can come up with, right? Let it explode. And you know, I think what we've done in our industry as well is let people use their creativity. You know, before I felt like sometimes we'd box them in to a silo and just say, this is the way we do it. You know, now with my design team, I tell them, give me 4 or 5 ideas and just let it explode. Let me worry about how we would produce it and where the stumbling blocks are, but just be as creative as you want to be. And I think that's what people don't realize when they look at our industry and they think it's just this one-dimensional thing. We're so much greater than what people give it respect for. And there's so many people out there, and you know, competitors and you know, alliances that just make this so exciting. Yeah, I love seeing posts. I don't care who it's from, a competitor down the street or someone around the world, and they're showing off what they've come up with. And sometimes I sit there and go, damn it, I wish I'd done that first. But I like the fact that they're now creating a direction where someone else is going to see it and go, hey, can you do that? And can you do this? And I think it's great.
Yeah, you know, and on top of that creative aspect, which I think is super key in terms of distinguishing yourself, one of the things you hear is the difficulty of finding folks that are interested in the industry because people don't appreciate it for what it is. They think it's, you know, a dirty press room and a newspaper, which, no offense to newspapers, but it's a different world.
It is a dirty world, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, what are you seeing in the market in terms of, you know, efforts to try and get, you know, some attention to the younger generation to think about, you know, the technology side of print or the creative side of print and get them into the world of print?
Well, I think you know, COVID did a lot of good and a lot of ugly for all industries. Let's be honest. But for us, I think you know, and we talk about this on you know, a couple of boards that I'm on, is it's kind of given us that shakeup. And sort of really step back and go, how well have we really done to educate or brag about our industry? You know, and you know, so we're starting to focus. You can see print groups focusing more on the younger people, going to high school events, going to more of the job fairs, you know, showing the means, opening up to schools to come for a tour. You know, like we have a couple tours coming up when school starts, just for, you know, creative classes to come in and say, okay, give me your file that you created and let me show you how we print it and make it into a sign or make it into a fabric piece or do all these things. So I think, you know, we've all kind of decided that we have to do something differently. Again, that, you know, it depends what side of the business you're on. You know, it's finding that skill set is very difficult. And you know, as a society, you know, everyone wants a quick buck, right? And you know, like someone asked me, I was in the States yesterday, and someone was asking me, you know, kind of how I started, and I was like, you know, I used to punch film. You know, I used to have a boss, Greg Ravowski, you know, and he'd sit there and he goes, Hamilton, you got to punch. It's got to be clean. You got to punch it this way. You can't go this way. And you had to. If I did that well, and I knew I did that well, I'd go up to the next step, and then I'd go up to the next step. But you know, society doesn't, you know, project those things anymore, right? It's, I graduated, I got to make $150,000 a year. So, or, you know, to be honest with you, you could be a barista and make $25 an hour. So, you know, I think the more that we educate and reset, you know, and up here in Canada, you know, we have some great ownership and great printers, you know, from Jamie Barbieri and, you know, the Kober family and you know, us here and you know, Dan at Cowan and others that, you know, want people to see what we see in our industry. And so I think as we do more of those things, then it'll happen. But it's tough. You know, it's, you know, you need a press operator. You don't have someone with 20 years experience just sitting there waiting to have a job, right? So, but we'll get there. You know, seeing my daughter engaged into it makes me feel happy, even though it's a family business in a way. You know, for a 20-year-old to enjoy it, and you know, my 18-year-old as well too. She's kind of like, you know, she's a painter and a designer, so she likes to take it from that step to concept to reality. So, you know, she's getting a different respect for it. But the more that we educate, the more that we get young people involved. And like even you and I, when we were in Florida the other week, a lot of younger people at the event than before. So it's nice seeing that sort of 30 year and down, and watching what other groups are doing to engage them. Orbis, one of the best is Brian from Olympus. Like, he does so much to create engagement strategy, not only with his people, but in the outside the industry as well too. So it's we'll get there.
It would be great if we could, maybe even with this podcast episode, if anybody's going to listen to it, but the young folks, especially those that are coming up right out of college, right out of high school, ought to know that the printing industry is a way broader than just, printing books, printing newspapers, as we've talked about today. But every single type of technology that you can think of is present in print, whether you're thinking about, web stores, whether you're thinking about applications for phones, and everything else in between.
Yeah, all those things. Yeah, you're right.
Engineering. I mean, just about every discipline you can think of comes to bear in print in some way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, tear apart your cell phone and look at the components that have industrial print on them. Go into stores, go into way signage, braille up on the wall so people who can't see or blind who know how to get around and read the thing. Like, it's one of those things where if you just kind of stand in the middle of something and turn and watch and realize, from all different aspects what's printed, right?
Well, sure. I mean, even building materials. I mean, if you're going to stand in a room or an office, if you're looking at wallpaper, chances are it was printed. If you're looking at, some sort of synthetic flooring with a color or a pattern, it was printed, right?
Absolutely.
Fabric printed again, or a T-shirt even printed, obviously. So yeah, no doubt, there's no way you can really escape print if you're inclined to try and escape it, of course. But it's really all around us, for sure. You know what? You mentioned something to me right before our call, Jason, that this term called maturity timeline. And I think you were talking about the industry and where we're finding ourselves. So where do you think we are on that timeline or spectrum in terms of where the industry is or where it might be going in, say, the next 2 to 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, so people have always said that our industry is matured. It's not growing. It's not changing. But it kind of goes back to what we were just saying, is if you actually step back and look at all the things that are printed and being worked on, and people's perception of print is just putting ink on a piece of paper, right? You have a Yeti mug in front of you, right?
I do.
One of the biggest brands that incorporates different styles and different levels of printing. So for me, that logo that's etched into the powder coat is part of a printing or an imaging based process that is an expansion of our business. So you have to look at everything that way, right? And so I think there's some exciting things that are changing that maturity scope or that timeline. Just even the way that people bring in projects for us and ask us to do the craziest things, whether it's, something for an elevator or something crazy for, we did something for the Hockey Hall of Fame to create a fake ice experience and stuff. Like, just, that expansion of, hey, it's not just saying print on a piece of paper and a thank you card, right? It's so much more than that. But I'm going to tell you, I still love this. And if someone sends it to me, I still smell it to see if it's digital or if it's offset or that. I drive my team nuts because they'll bring in the sample and, I grab it and see if it's what the anchor or the print process is. But you know what? They find it funny, but it actually becomes something that they start doing themselves and they don't realize it,
Right.
Or we had a customer the other day. We printed chip boxes for French fries because they were doing a photo shoot. They're like, "Can you give me 6 different?" So I go to the production floor and say to the guys, "We got a weird project coming in. We have to print French fry boxes, right? Or French fry bags, or and we do a lot of lenticular, a lot of different things, but I'm excited for that next generation and where they're going to push us. And again, the education in terms of what it takes to get to that point will expand that mindset. So we have a person in industry, Warren, and he's famous for his video of "I love print" and print's not dying. And my favorite line for him, and when I text him, is he puts that stuff on his bread like peanut butter, meaning ink, right? And people laugh at that, but for those of us, it means everything. And like I showed that video to one of my employees who was like 25 years old, and I'm texting Warren saying, I'm showing a piece in your video. So he's like recorded as they're watching it, right? And the guy's going, how can this guy be so excited about printing? And I said, when you finish a project and you see something that you've done, whether it's built out of acrylic and 16 different pieces glued together and this and that, and you sit there and you take a picture of it, how do you feel? He goes, well, I have pride. I said, that's what we want. We want people to have pride in it, right? You have pride in how you dress. You have pride in what you do as a family and all those things. But, when you do those unique things and it brings pride and excitement to you, I said, that's how this industry was built on. So,
yeah. But you guys make it seem easy, though. You guys make it seem easy what you do. Well, but, when the finished product comes out. But like when you were talking about that Yeti cup, think about that for a minute. You're printing on an aluminum object that's round to start with. That can't be easy.
No, it's and they're a unique brand in themselves, but I like those challenges, right? I think it's that thing that drives your imagination, and printing carpet for someone to put in on a floor, or all those things. So we're doing something for a customer right now where we've print and cut on 1-inch acrylic. Well, I can tell you right now, if 100 printers watch this podcast, 95 of them will go, I'll never touch that. That's not my thing. That's great. That's fine. But for us, that's our challenge work. That's our test, our due diligence. And, how do we cut it? How do we glaze the edging? How do we make it look exactly what the customer is looking for? And, the way we print, there's trial and error, right? And, you have to be willing to accept that audience that you're targeting, because we may make it look easy when you see the final product, but we did one for a customer. It was for a cannabis company, and they wanted the Ferrari of a display. So the only way that we could make it is we had to cut 6 different sizes of acrylic, print it, sand it, glue it, mount it, wrap it. So there's me. People don't really get too happy when they see me with power tools. They kind of run, but there I am on a Sunday sanding 1,000 pieces of acrylic, because that's the way it had to be built, and the final product is we were aiming for something. But the fact that you see it and you go, man, that looks, the way you explain it was simple. The hard work behind it is the gratification, right? And and that's the thing. So when we do tours, we don't show the simple little thing. We like to show the thing that people go, wow, the wow factors. And there's so many of us that do it. We just need to brag a little bit better.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, social media helps you brag in a certain way. I had this conversation with one of my sales reps in the US yesterday, but we're such a tangible industry, right? It's a touch and feel sort of thing, and it's in everything. Like when you go to buy milk and you buy your milk in your carton, you look at the label, right? If someone prints a label in a very unique or different way than somebody else, it catches your eye. That's the power of print, right? It's the power of print. You go to Staples and you look at a notepad and the cover of the notepad. If someone did an embossing or a foil on it, your eye gravitates to that thing that's a little bit more unique than just a piece of paper. So, it's those are exciting things. And, I like to remind people that a lot of steps went into making that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, a lot of trial and error too.
Absolutely. And it's it's almost an engineering process when you look at what we're trying to do.
I don't think I don't think it's almost. It definitely is in many cases, right? Because
you're probably right.
Yeah, you gotta know a lot of stuff just to make it happen. I mean, it's one thing, to your point, to put ink on a piece of newsprint. Not that that's super simple either. There's a lot that goes into that too. But sure, I mean, when you're trying to print on strange things that nobody's ever printed on before, or create a 3-dimensional object, just I think that should excite almost any kid who's in high school or in college to say, here's what you can do with yourself,
Yeah, and just so you know, for you newspaper printers out there, I did learn how difficult that was for a few years. So I have a lot. Again, I love print across all disciplines. I think everyone brings a uniqueness, and I like talking to a lot of people who are doing things differently than what we are. And I hope podcasts like this and others, reach out to there and create some excitement. And, it's, for me, it's an open door policy. You want to come see what we do. And, I judge the work by the smile on the people's faces that are doing it. So, and creating that community within our own business and then outside of that. So, and that's why I love that you're doing this. This is an amazing next step. You have a different audience that, that will hopefully learn from some of us that are doing this with you.
I really appreciate it. That's in part why we did it. Is there's plenty of places within the trade itself that people publish articles or they talk about the things that they've done, but it's a little bit hard sometimes to get that message out into the rest of the world so that people that may not appreciate it or maybe never thought about using print to do some of these creative things. Maybe we get a different view of the world. And if we can hit a couple of young people too, the kind of message, maybe we're doing everybody a service that way.
Oh, absolutely. And, like I did a post, I think about 6 months ago, we did this project for vacuums. We made the vacuum display almost look like it was something from a robotic movie, right? So, when we took people on a tour, they thought, like, this looks like the iRobot backdrop. Like, what's going on? And I said, see, some imagination can take you so many places, right? It's exciting.
That's for sure. Well, maybe a good way to close our chat today is that, if you're in the business or thinking about the business and you go to the Printing United show, you're going to see more than a few robots on the floor doing some pretty cool stuff, no doubt.
The automation and the things that people are doing. And, some of it's in the response of, it's tough to get people. Like, I accept that, or you're trying to streamline and execute your business in many different ways. But, the things that some of those manufacturers come up with and the people that support it are it's just amazing. And I've loved the fact that I've been able to sit on both sides of it and work with some really great people to help, expand my mind and my vision for my company. And I thank my owners tremendously for allowing me to use all these years of experience of driving everybody nuts and having some laughs as well too, and continuing to help grow the industry. And I appreciate you letting me do this.
It's been great. You're a great ambassador for the business, Jason. So
I appreciate that.
Well, I think that's a great way to end it today. So Jason Hamilton, the President and Chief Innovation Officer from Innovative Displays, on both sides of the Canadian border, U.S. and Canada. So thanks so much for joining us today for this episode of the Think Factory podcast powered by OGC Solutions. And we'll see you at the Printing United show in October and for the next podcast episode.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.